Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to our occasional Evercade and chill, where we're just going to play an Evercade game, have a bit of fun, have a little chat, and see how we get on. I thought today we'd play Enduro, because I'm very much on an Activision kick at the minute. Strap on your goggles, sink into your seat, leave all your fears in the pit. You're about to enter the race of your life. You need to pass lots of cars each day through sun, snow, fog and ice, sunrise to sunset. Drive as fast as you can, as long as you can. Welcome to the National Enduro. The number of cars you must pass is posted at the beginning of each day on the bottom of your instrument panel. On the first day you must pass 200 cars to qualify for the next day. On all subsequent days you must pass 300 cars. Beware of changing weather and road conditions. So the history of this was Larry Miller's attempt to create a realistic feeling driving game, but with the asterisk that this is on the Atari 2600. And it was based on his own experiences of driving through the varied weather conditions of California. Alex DeMayo's home computer title, The Great American Cross Country Road Race, which was also published by Activision, is regarded as a spiritual successor to Enduro, but in reality the two games actually had very little to do with each other besides sharing a few design elements in common and both having the same publisher. And Katie's little tip here. A pro tip they don't tell you in the manual. At night time and in the fog, look carefully at the colour of the tail lights ahead of you. If they're pink, they're in one of the side lanes. If they're a deeper red, they're in the middle lane. Use this knowledge to position yourself accordingly in advance and keep yourself up. Keep your speed up, rather. Keep yourself up. Now, interestingly, although we say that the Great American Cross Country Road Race doesn't have anything to do with Enduro directly, it does actually use that exact same convention for the tail lights and the nighttime sequences. Fun fact. Right. This is one of my favourite Activision games. It's a very simple racing game, but it's a really enjoyable little racing game. So let's go. All you do is you start here and you press the button to accelerate, and off we go. And then you let go of the accelerator and you don't decelerate. You just keep going at the speed you're currently going at. You lose a little bit of speed if you hit the sides of the road, and you lose a lot of speed if you hit a car, unsurprisingly. So I tend to find the best way to succeed in this game is to pick a speed at which you feel comfortable and able to react to the incoming traffic as it approaches, but which will still let you meet your target by the end of the time limit. Now, the time limit isn't actually made explicit on the screen anywhere, but basically what happens is there is a cycle of conditions that you go through. So you have the standard daytime bit that we just went through, then you go into a snowy section, which is where we are now. Well, your handling is affected a little bit. It's a little bit stiffer to handle, and thus it's a little bit more difficult to get out of the way of approaching cars. And after this we will move into, I think it's the nighttime section after this. So a little bit more daytime, but you'll see in the background the sun starts to set. And in a moment we will be plunged into the darkness. One thing you'll find at night is that the traffic on the road actually drives faster at night. So you can accelerate a little bit more at night time and still have the cars approaching you at the same relative speed. And of course, if you're a bit concerned about the stuff coming towards you a little bit too quickly, you can brake, which on Evercade you can do with either a button or pulling back on the joystick or D-pad. So there, for example, I want to slow down to get through that little gap. So as we come to the end of the nighttime sequence, you get thrown into the fog, where visibility is very limited, so you probably want to slow down a little bit for that. And after that the sun will start to come up, And by the time the sun rises and you're back into the daytime sequence, you must have met your target, which is the bottom window on the status panel, which is currently showing the green flags because I have met my target. And if you haven't met your target by the time the sun comes up, that's it. That's the end of your race. And so your aim basically is to get the mile counter to the highest possible value you can, because that's your score basically. So unlike the Great American Cross Country Road Race, which came a little bit later, you don't have to worry about fuel in this. You don't have to worry about the police. It's very simple, very pure racing. Just pick a speed and avoid the incoming traffic. And as you can see, now we're back into the daytime. The target at the bottom is reset. And because we're now on the second day, we have to pass 300 cars before the sun rises on the next day. So again, pick a speed that provides a good balance between being able to respond to the incoming traffic and actually moving forward at a pace that is going to allow you to meet that target. And that's just something you'll get a feel for as you play the game. So into the snow, and we've already passed 100 cars. I think this is a sensible speed to go at the moment. So we've got enough time to respond, even with the slightly hampered handling that the snow is providing. Ooh, that's a little bit awkward. And back into the regular weather as the sun goes down. And so you see, every day follows that sequence of conditions that you have to contend with. And so, although as I say, the time limit isn't made explicit anywhere on the screen, you can basically tell how long you've got based on what the conditions you're driving through are. And there you can see the red lights versus the pink lights for the outside lanes and the middle lane. Okay, 45 to go. Yeah, I think the easy mistake to make with this game, and probably the reason people who are new to it might struggle a little bit sometimes, is with most racing games, your temptation is to accelerate up to your maximum possible speed and hold it there as much as possible. Maybe slow down a bit for corners, but for the most part you want to be holding down that accelerator, going as fast as you can as much of the time. Whereas Enduro here, you'll see, takes a rather more deliberate approach. Where it's actually in your interest to be a little bit more restrained. Which is probably reflective of real life endurance racing. Because yes, you want to win, but if you blow your tyres or you run out of fuel or anything like that, that's just going to end up wasting time. So if you take things just a little bit more carefully, in such a way that you know you can still get the performance you need while staying safe. That's the way to handle things. So we're on to our third day now. And again, 300 cars to overtake. Which, if we go at a similar pace to yesterday, should be just fine. Now, the interesting thing I find about this game is that although the theoretical difficulty doesn't escalate beyond having to pass 300 cars in a day, I tend to find that you will probably reach a limit at some point where you start making more and more mistakes and it becomes more and more difficult to reach that 300 target. And although I've played this game quite a lot, I'm not entirely sure how it does that. I don't know if it's just natural fatigue on the part of the player, or if it's actually making the arrangements of cars a little bit more difficult to deal with. I don't know. I find that I can generally fairly consistently reach about day 5. And after that, I just feel like I start having a few more difficulties. But we're making reasonable time at the moment. Not got that long left, as we are into the early morning fog. Oh no, that's not going to help. That's not going to help. Right, the other thing that is very easy to end up doing is that when you know there's not much time left and you know you've made a mistake, the temptation is to just put your foot down and try and make as much progress as you can, but you'll often find that counterproductive because you'll make more mistakes and you'll crash, and as a result you won't reach your target. So we're just going to make it this time, I think. There we go, just about. So let's get up to a comfortable speed again. Dear, that's not a good start, is it? That's not a good start at all. Oh no! See what I mean? I don't feel like the arrangements of cars are specifically harder. But I'm not sure if you just naturally lose your concentration after a little while. But I always tend to find around day 4 or 5 or so, I would just kind of lose the plot a bit and get myself into a right old mess. But again, let's just follow my own advice. Take it easy. Take it carefully. Don't rush, because there's no need to rush. You do have plenty of time to get past those 300 cars. Right, we've reached the 100 mark. We've crashed. Oh no! absolutely lost the plot on this one. Yeah, I don't feel like we're going to make it this time. But let's get as far as we can to see how we manage. Cars to pass before the morning. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. All we can do is our best. Absolute concentration. Yeah, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. We weren't far off. We weren't that far off. But not quite. Okay, 579.8 miles. Not bad. So let's have one more go and see if we can do a little bit better than that. Right, off we go. Getting off to a great start. Yeah, I'm very fond of this game. I forget when I first played it, because it certainly wasn't back in the day, because I didn't have a 2600 back in the day. So it's something I discovered in more recent years. I think it must have been something like Atari Anthology on PS2 I discovered it with. But I remember playing it for the first time and thinking, wow, this is really cool. This is a really cool racing game. It's a very simple racing game. But I like that it's doing something a bit different from what you typically see in the genre. Because you're not trying to complete a set number of laps. You're not trying to win a race as such. You're not even really racing against the clock, because you're not trying to get somewhere by the time the time expires. You're just trying to overtake enough cars by the time time expires, and that's not dependent on how far you've got down the course. It's simply dependent on how many you've gone past, how many of you've successfully avoided, and how few times you've crashed, basically. And how well you've managed your speed. Because like I say, I am pretty convinced that the crucial skill in this game is managing your speed, to find that perfect balance between staying in control and making enough progress. Because once you nail that, you could theoretically play this forever. Which is why I say I'm not entirely sure how they implement an escalating difficulty level beyond that initial jump from 200 to 300 cars. Because they must do, otherwise the game would literally go on forever, wouldn't it? Once you find that perfect balancing point. I don't know, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't make it harder. And maybe it is all in your head. Maybe it is all dependent on your own sort of personal sense of fatigue. One game going on for that long, having to concentrate on one thing for that long. Because back in these days there was sort of a strong sense of figuring out what was the optimal amount of time for a game to last. If you've watched my Atari A to Z flashback series, you might recall that a lot of the Atari 2600 games, specifically lasted for 2 minutes and 16 seconds. And that was for two reasons. One, it was a clean multiple of a number of frames. And two, it was considered, after a certain amount of study, to be the optimal amount of time for a person to have fun. In the context of arcade games of the late 70s and early 80s. 2 minutes and 16 seconds was considered to be the amount of time it would take for someone to get to grips with the game, have a good game of it, and walk away feeling satisfied that they hadn't wasted their 25 cents, their 10p or whatever. And so I think game designers were quite conscious of that at the time. Which is why I find myself wondering how those considerations were borne in mind when designing this game. Damn it. Like, did Larry Miller know that after 2 minutes and 16 seconds your average player is going to lose their concentration? Because I certainly am. This run has been a bloody disaster. Not even convinced we're going to make it out of day 2 at this rate, but we'll see. I think it might be just about possible if I don't make any more mistakes, which is a big ask at this point. $50 cars to go and the morning is coming. Oh no. That crash did not help. Alright, we're going to have to go slightly reckless for this last stretch. We might just make it as long as I don't crash. We've done it! Right. Let's be careful from here on, shall we? Slow and steady, as they say, wins the race. So let's put that theory to the test. This is a format of racer that I think I would like to see a modern take on. I guess in some ways you can look at it as, I guess there's kind of elements in it in like endless runner games and that sort of thing. But like I would like to see a modern car racing game with modern visuals that adopts this structure. Gives you a long, endless road, a certain number of cars to overtake, varying weather conditions, and an implied time limit as a result. Like literally, you could just take the exact game structure of this game, give it modern graphics, and I think that would be a lot of fun. That could be an indie hit. Doesn't even have to be particularly modern graphics. Just give it a bit of a facelift and give it like 16-bit style, Outrun style graphics. And I think that would still be great fun. If I had any idea how to make a racing game, I would have a go at doing it myself. But I don't. You know, in the past I've looked into how these sort of vanishing point style races construct the road and how they make corners happen and that sort of thing, and the maths involved is brain melting. Like it's easy to criticize this type of game for not really providing a completely realistic driving experience, because all you're doing is sliding left and right and getting pushed to the outside of corners when you go around corners. But when you consider the mathematics that goes into just the simple act of constructing that road from two parallel lines that are going off into the distance, it is surprising how complicated it is. And I think this is something I've been aware of for the longest time, because I remember back in the 16-bit days, I used to do a bit of programming in DOS Basic on the Atari ST. And I remember one day I thought, hey, it'd be really cool if I could make a racing game. And as soon as I got into the sort of design process of that, I thought, hold on, exactly how does that work? How does that happen? And at the time there were just no resources to be found about how to do that, so I was never able to figure it out for myself. But obviously people did, because we have games like this, we have games like Outrun, Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge, Pole Position, myriad games that did this, so someone figured it out. And not only that, the knowledge evidently got shared somehow. Otherwise, one person would have made a racing game and gone, ha ha ha, I have the secrets of road drawing, and I shall never ever give them up. And we would have only ever had one racing game. Ever. I guess people could have figured it out independently if they had a suitably mathematical brain. But I don't think I have that. I say that. I was quite good at maths in secondary school, but I hated it, was the problem. And so I never sort of voluntarily wanted to pursue it, because I hated it so much. But I did well at it. I was in the top set and everything. But funny thing about GCSE maths in the early 1990s, late 1990s it would have been actually. Funny thing about GCSE maths in that period is they don't teach you how to draw a road on a computer. Which is bloody inconsiderate of them, frankly. I do remember wowing people in primary school when we were playing with Logo on the BBC, and I could make all these super cool spirograph style shapes because I understood how loops worked because I'd programmed in BASIC before. We're a little bit behind schedule. We've made it to day 5. And as you can see, the little car symbol on the instrument panel changes to a little cup when you get to day 5. Because you are a champion. I like how they didn't quite have enough pixels to give it a handle on both sides though. Well, we beat our score last time anyway. But I don't know how much longer we're going to last. So I can feel that concentration waning again already. Use the brakes though. It's better to brake and lose a bit of speed than it is to hit a car and lose a lot of speed, so let's just bear that in mind. Onwards! Maybe just a smidge more speed. Just a smidge more speed. Alright, we're halfway through the 300. And probably halfway through the day. Let's just keep this going nice and carefully. We should be all good. Damn! I don't think I've ever made it over 1,000 in this game. That feels like it would be a significant milestone to reach. But I don't think it's going to happen today. No, definitely not with performance like that, it's not. I think we might have reached the end of our race. Unless I can go beast mode on this last section. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Oh. Not bad, not bad. 740.5 miles. That's not a bad high score at all. I think I've done better. But that's not bad at all. Day 5. Because yeah, day 5 I can usually relatively consistently get to. But anything beyond that is a bit tricky. Right, anyway, that was Enduro by Activision for Atari 2600. And it's played here on Evercade. So, just remains for me to say, as always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you again next time.